Alrighty guys, we are back here with another mod spotlight. I'm Exterminator and thank you for joining me. And I know today is not Wednesday when these typically come out, but we're actually going to be doing two this week because there are two mods specifically that I really want to do spotlights for, and well, to be honest, I couldn't wait to do either one of them next week. So we're going to do two this week. The first one here is for the logistics railway, okay? And I'm going to just start off right off the bat by saying this is an absolutely brilliant mod. I'm really surprised no one's made this before. It is an extremely great idea, and I think it adds a lot to the game here. Okay, so I'm definitely recommending it right off the bat. Now, what does this do? Well, it adds 4 different types of rails, okay? Now, this has to obviously do with logistics and trains. Now, if you don't use logistics robots to unload your trains at all, then this probably isn't going to be very relevant to you. But if you do, then normally you have to do something like this, right? You have to have your inserters, grab them from the thing, putting into a chest, whether it's an active provider or passive, whatever. You have to do this. It makes your train stations kind of big and can be kind of a pain to set up, even with blueprints. All right. Well, this mod adds these rails, right? There's one for each type. We have here a requester rail, a storage rail, a passive provider rail, and an active provider rail. And essentially how this works, which is really cool, is whenever a cargo wagon that's attached to a train, right? Okay, it has to actually be a train with a stop and engines and stuff. But whenever the cargo wagon enters over one of these sections of rail, it makes the cargo wagon a logistics chest of the corresponding type, right? So when this enters over here, this is going to be an active provider chest itself, and the robots will pull from it, right? They'll do exactly like they would do with an active provider. They will empty this out immediately and throw it in storage down here. And it is just so cool. So it completely eliminates the need for these inserters and chests and all that. You can make your stations really nice and compact using this, and it's just super nice. And there is a research here to unlock this. You need to research automated rail transportation normally, and this allows logistics railway, which unlocks all these. It is a little expensive, 150 of each type, but not that big of a deal. And these only take one rail to make. I would say maybe that's a little cheap. I think maybe it should take several rails a piece, or some rails and circuits maybe, or something like that. Would be super cool, and maybe make it slightly more balanced, but it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, let's go ahead and give it a test here. A few quick technical things to go over though, just so you're not confused, okay? Unfortunately, you cannot quick replace these, okay? If I go here, it won't let me do this, right? You can either tear the rail up completely and just put these down, or something the mod developer suggested, which works quite well, is if you point these sideways like this, and go like this, and then do this, you can quick replace, essentially. So that's one way to do it. And I guess really quickly on that subject, these can only be built, as you can see, they can only be built on, you can see normal rails, right? They can go on diagonals. These cannot, okay? They can only be built up and down and sideways. And that's not that big of a deal. I mean, you wouldn't really ever have a station on a diagonal. So no big deal, but just a quick note. Okay, so the replacing. The next thing is this requester rail. You notice it has a little blue orb in here. Okay, when you go to select it, and it can be a little finicky to select, okay? If you just put your mouse here, it's not going to do anything. You need to put your mouse either a tiny bit above it or a tiny bit below it, and you get the actual selection box for it. Okay, this is here for the mod to work and the code and all that. Okay, don't touch it, don't remove it, don't do anything with this blue orb, just leave it be, and it should work fine. Okay, and then you just request your items, so on and so forth. So that is about it for that. So let's go ahead and test this, shall we? So when this enters over here and parks, okay, it has to be stopped. It won't work when it's moving. So once it actually parks here, this will then become a logistics active provider chest. And another way to know if it's actually working is visually. If you have your advanced info on, which I do, which you change with Alt, if you have this on, when this guy parks here and becomes a logistics chest, the icon for whatever's in here is going to shrink. And that's a visual way you can know it's working. So if I have him go here, see, once it stops, it shrinks, and the robots head out and grab it. Okay? And it works exactly like you just had a ton of active providers. Now, one other thing to note is you can notice here, I cannot interact with this, okay? It's essentially, it like puts the items in another entity or something to that effect to actually interact here with the logistics network. So you can't interact with this unless you stop the train manually. And if you do that, it makes it not a logistics chest anymore. And if you tell it to go again, then it will. But just a quick note, it's not broken or anything. You just can't interact with this while it's doing its thing. And I still can't, right? Not until it leaves and gets off these rails or I stop it. And then now I can. Okay? So, very cool. These others are pretty self-explanatory. If you have passive providers here, it'll just make this a passive provider chest. And essentially, I mean, I would typically recommend using active and just having emptied into storage or something. If it's passive, it'll certainly work. But how that'll work will basically be it only pulls out as much as is being requested at the moment, right? Because that's how active providers work. So your train won't be fully emptied when it gets here unless that many things are actually requesting a full train worth. Okay? Storage, I can't really think of a time you would want to use storage. I mean, it's totally, I mean, you guys will probably figure something out. It's totally up to you. But just for throwing out examples, I can't really think of one because I don't think with a normal train you would want this to be storage, because then it will just get filled with random crap that robots put in storage when it gets here. So typically I would say active provider or maybe passive provider. Now if you want to request stuff to your trains, you can just use a requester thing. It works the same way. You just put it down. Again, don't remove the orbs, don't touch them. You can set, and you can actually, quick note here, you can copy paste like you can with normal chests. So if I want to request belt, see it's requesting belt, and when you actually mouse over this, it shows everything in the logistics storage, which is pretty cool. If you shift right click to copy, you can paste just like you can with everything else. And you're going to want to, right? You're going to want to paste this on all the rails that the cargo wagons are over. And then it will just request it, and it'll just make these requesters. And there you go. Now I was playing around with this, and I did encounter an error when playing with these requesters. Not always. It was something about a dummy railway, like when I stopped the train or told it to go again, it threw up an error. And I'm going to contact the developer about that. But just a quick note there, I'm not sure it's completely fleshed out. I mean, it just came out like today or the day yesterday. So still pretty new, but it seems to work for the most part, except for that one error I encountered, and I'm not exactly sure how to replicate it. But yeah, so there you go. Just make sure that these are under your cargo wagons when they get here. Again, you can't interact with it. Once it stops, it'll become the logistics chest. And it's a very cool mod. Very good idea. Really well done. And I mean, I'm going to be using it constantly, because then you don't have to deal with all these inserters and chests and junk. It is just super cool. So there you go. If you're interested, as always, there will be a link in the description to the forum post where you can find the mod and check it out if you want to. And I'm just looking really quick at the post here. If you give me a second, make sure I'm not missing anything. I don't believe so. Oh, one other thing, actually, one important thing. The mod is not compatible with other mods that introduce logistics wagons like 5dim trains. 5dim is a big like mod pack. Okay, it doesn't work with that. However, it is compatible with Bob's mods and stainless steel wagon and other such wagon mods that don't use control.lua. But that's just a quick note. It won't work with other mods that add logistics wagons. Just a very quick note there if you happen to use mods that do. But again, it does work with bobs. It does work with the steel cargo wagon, stainless steel cargo wagon rather. And there you go. So very cool. Highly recommend it. If you're interested, check out the description to find the link to the forum post. And yeah, I think that's it. So hopefully you found this helpful. And until next time, guys, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.